No.
Not talk too much.
I'm gonna say hi anyway.
Edited too. Okay, so this same assignment is on Google Classrooms. You, 7 people do not need to do it on there because you're doing it here. So to everyone who's there at home, you need to do this assignment. The PowerPoint is attached. You can watch this video to get some extra information that might help you out, but the PowerPoint is there. So we're going to start with the Earth's crust today. Now, first off, you're going to see a number of pictures here. Now, each one of these pictures is going to be shown every couple weeks when we do a lesson, and they're all going to relate to the overall theme of the Earth's crust. So put up your hand. Can you see anything? What are you recognizing here? Anything you recognize at all? Cassidy?
A train track.
Train track. Okay, but what about this train? Is it a normal-looking train track?
No, it's swervy.
Oh, it's swervy. Do train tracks normally look swervy?
I don't think so.
No. Okay, so what may have caused that?
A volcano.
Do you think a volcano would have caused that? No? What might have caused that?
An earthquake?
There you go. Okay. Connor, anything else you recognize on here besides a train track that's bent?
The volcano erupting.
Volcano erupting. Okay, so we have a specific type of volcano there. Sure. Anything else? Evan?
Island.
There's an island here. Yeah, and that's actually one thing we're going to talk about today. Mateo?
The map at the bottom there.
The map at the bottom. Yep. So this is a world map. It's got the word Pangea on it. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Juliana?
That graph thing, I don't know what it's called. Like, I think it's called
Sound wave thing?
Yeah, sound wave or a graph.
Okay, well, you're close. It does have to do with waves. They're not sound waves, though, but they're a type of wave we're going to be talking about as the note goes on. So the Earth's crust is broken up into 3 parts. The first part is volcanoes. So we're going to talk about what are volcanoes, why they happen, what are some of the dangers of them besides the obvious ones. And then we're going to talk about earthquakes. Why do earthquakes happen? What do we know about earthquakes? What's the research done on earthquakes? And then we're going to talk into the formation of the Earth and how the Earth was actually formed. So we're going to start today by talking about earthquake and volcano explanations. So before we knew scientifically what caused earthquakes and volcanoes, people had theories. And what do you think people believed caused earthquakes and volcanoes before they actually, before our own 20th century where we started studying them? Yep. Gods, great. Yes, that's for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Demons?
Okay, possibly. So some type of other world thing that was controlling the Earth because we didn't know exactly what was doing it. So why do we have earthquakes and volcanoes, and is there a connection between the two? So what do you guys think? Is there a connection between volcanoes and earthquakes? Are they somehow related to each other? Do they somehow happen because of each other? Juliana?
A volcano is formed by earthquakes, right?
A volcano is formed by earthquakes? Okay, that's what your guess is.
Plates moving.
Say that again?
The plates moving.
Plates moving. Okay, Mateo.
Sometimes if a volcano is starting to build up pressure, that earthquake can be the thing that finally puts it over and makes it erupt.
Okay, very good. Yes, Evan.
When lava tries to surface and so the plates move upwards to make a mountain. And then
Okay,
the
you guys got some great stuff to start with, which is perfect. So people all over the world have always had explanations for what causes earthquakes. The Earth to shake and volcanoes to erupt. We've had theories about this forever, and I believe it was Zach that said gods. So of course, before we knew the science behind it, we often guessed that they were gods that did this. Most believed they were caused by some sort of god or goddess, while others thought there was a scientific explanation that just hadn't been discovered yet. So the first society that really started to talk and write and explain about volcanoes was the ancient Hawaiians. The Hawaiians had a specific goddess, and her name was Pele. Now, Pele was a goddess who was believed to make the mountains shake and lava flow at a place called Kilauea. Has anyone here been to Hawaii before? Zach, okay, did you get to see the volcanoes when you were there?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have
I saw all the lava rocks.
The Hawaii archipelago is a massive volcanic set of islands, and these are still active today. You can actually, and we're going to be watching some videos over the next few weeks about, well, you guys will be watching them at home, about the actual lava flow there and how these volcanoes were erupting. So the ancient Hawaiians who lived there saw these things happening and wanted to explain it. So one of the ideas was that Pele had this set of beautiful hair that was made of lava, and she was responsible for making the earthquakes shake and the volcanoes erupt. Even in North America, we had theories about how these things happen. So there's I don't want to use the word God so much, but there's a spiritual being amongst indigenous cultures called Glooskap. He's also known as Wisikajak if you're in Ojibwe. And they believed that it was him who was causing the mountains to shake and the Earth to move, and specifically creating what are known as the Sugarloaf Mountains. So all cultures around the world who've had to deal with volcanoes and earthquakes have at some point tried to explain that, how they were happening or occurring. And again, when we go back far enough, it's mostly gods or goddesses that are used as explanations. It wasn't until we get to the ancient Greeks that we try to have more of a non-god explanation for why these things are occurring. So this is Anaxagoras, who was an ancient Greek philosopher. You're going to, when you get into grade 8 in high school, you're going to learn more and more about specific Greek philosophers, scientists, thinkers, who looked at the world from more of a scientific approach, less of a godlike approach. Now, Anaxagoras had a theory about what caused earthquakes, and he believed that there were great winds inside the earth. And whenever these winds would crash into each other, they'd cause the earth to shake. Now, let me ask you, it's pretty obvious what's wrong with this theory. What's right about it, though? What's right about his theory? Remember, all the explanations before Anaxagoras were simply that gods did this. What is he right about, despite the fact that there aren't winds inside our earth? Mateo.
That something underneath is moving around and crashing.
Exactly, it's inside the earth. So he's right. There is something going on inside. It's not a god from outside the earth. It's something inside the earth. However, are there great winds inside the earth, Connor? No. So we know that he was wrong there, but at least he's in the right direction. I'll let you catch up there. And yes, they did not have photographs in around 2000 BC, so we have sculptors or clay models of what people would have looked like back then. Don't expect a nice video of them. Yes?
For the last one, number 2.
Yes.
The last thing on the page, it was credited with the creating...
The Sugarloaf Mountains.
Creating the...
Sugarloaf Mountains. And I could put, yeah, you could always put, this is all accessible online too, and I could put it back up if you need it later when we're done. Sorry, I got the camera in front, Evan. I'm trying to make this work. Now, we get to the Romans. Now, the Romans inherited a lot of the Greek learning. So, when the Romans come around, we have a Roman writer named Ovid. And Ovid is also thinking about earthquakes and volcanoes, like a lot of other Romans and Greeks were. And he comes up with another theory. So his theory is that earthquakes occurred when the earth came too close to the sun and trembled from the heat of the sun. Yeah, Sage is already shaking her head. What's wrong with that theory, Sage?
It's silly.
Well, yeah. Does the movement of our earth have anything to do with earthquakes? No, you're right. I see head shaking, but no one wants to say anything. So, but let me ask you, what's right about Ovid's theory? He's wrong. It does not have to do with the fact that the earth is too close to the sun. But what is right about his theory? There is one thing that is right. That the earth came too close to the sun and trembled from the great heat. Connor?
That there was heat.
It had to do with the fact that there was heat, there was friction, there was something happening that was causing this. But again, Anaxagoras thought it was in the earth. Ovid thinks it's out of the earth. But he is right about one thing. It does have to do with great energy, great force, great heat. Evan?
Plates?
Well, he's not quite there yet, but we're all sort of putting these theories together, our ancient ancestors. We go fast forward a little bit to the Middle Ages. We have, well, even past the Middle Ages, but we have René Descartes, who was a very famous philosopher. He had a very famous line, "I think, therefore I am." René Descartes was in the military. He was very, very wealthy, and when he left his military service, he wanted to write a number of philosophical ideas. And he spent years in his home just simply thinking, sitting by the fire and thinking about everything. And when if you ever go into high school philosophy or take anything in university, you're inevitably going to study René Descartes. He was a fascinating person. He also created what's called the Cartesian plane. So later on in math, we're going to be talking about that. And he had a theory about earthquakes and volcanoes as well. His theory was that there was a glowing core at the center of our Earth. And it was the glowing core that caused earthquakes and volcanoes to happen. Okay, what do we think about Descartes' theory here? Anaxagoras says it's great winds. Ovid thinks it's getting too close to the sun. Descartes says there's a glowing core at the center of our Earth that's causing these things to happen. Mateo? Okay, you're right. It isn't from the core. Yep.
It's from the mountain. It's the core. He got the core, but it's not coming from.
He knows that it's inside. He is right about the fact that we do have a glowing inner core. That's not the reason we have earthquakes and volcanoes, though, but he's very close to getting there. And this is 400, 500 years before we have any real knowledge of actually what's going on. It's pretty impressive that they can do this just by looking and thinking. Now, even the legend of Atlantis was the result of a volcano story. Have you guys heard the legend of Atlantis before? Or you seen the Disney movie Atlantis, maybe?
I haven't seen.
Did anyone know anything about what is this theory of Atlantis, Connor?
Sank underwater.
A city that sank underwater. Yes. So there's this fantastic myth about an ancient city that sank to the bottom of the ocean. You can even go even further to the Disney version where there's mermaids there now and they've created this amazing civilization. Okay? There is a legend that has gone back a long time about a great city called Atlantis that sank beneath the waves and disappeared. And some people think the city is still there waiting to be found. Okay? How do you think that this legend might be the result of a volcano? Anyone think of how this, Evan?
They erupted, maybe they destroyed the walls and like a bunch of water and like a flood.
Okay, it destroyed it with a flood, sure. Zach?
The tank top, the plates.
The plates, yeah.
What are they called? The tank top.
Yep.
I can't say it.
Tectonic plates. I know what you're trying to say. Okay, so in reality, the city of Atlantis didn't sink. Okay, so here's what happened essentially with the city of Atlantis. This was a real city. Okay, it was a real city that was a center of Greek trade. One day, possibly a fisherman, a sailor, shows up to do some trade, and the city's gone. So what do you think they say? Well, it vanished. It disappeared. It must be magic. No, that's not what happened. Okay? And Evan was kind of on the right, or I think it was Zach was kind of on the right track. It disappeared because the city was built on a volcanic island that blew up. And this does happen quite frequently. This is called the island of Santorini. It's just in the Aegean Sea off the coast of Greece. This is what the island looked like before the year 1500 BC. Now, the city of Atlantis, being a port city, would have been near one of the ports with also some development in the center. So this is the island of Santorini. It's an actual island, and you can go there today. Doesn't look like that today. Okay? It looks like this today. Because what was happening was there was a volcano at the center of the island that was growing. And when that volcano erupted, you can actually see, do you guys kind of see where that shape is there? Mm-hmm. It blew half the island to pieces. Now, what's left is just the outer core of Santorini, the outer edge of it.
I see a plane.
Now, here's the interesting thing. Do you see anything there? This is a satellite image, but do you see anything there that might tell us about the future of this island? Evan?
What? No.
Well, what do you see, Evan? What were you going to say?
I see Ramon.
You see it. Okay. What were you going to say, Mateo?
Well, if the water levels rise, then the whole island could go under. But
Okay.
if they go down, then you might start to see pieces of the center coming back up.
Sure. Yeah, that's really good. Juliana?
The volcano's still there, so it could
There.
be
Do you see this here? Mm-hmm. There's another volcano still there. And as most volcanoes do, it's still growing. Now remember, we talked about this in science in our first term. Volcanoes don't actually, they're not alive, they don't grow, but they are moving in the sense that they're pushing upwards. So over half the island was blown into the sky as ash and cinder. So a lot of the island just completely disappeared. In fact, the volcano was so massive that nobody survived to explain what had happened. The next person traveling to the island saw the big hole where the city had been, and of course believed that it had sunk. Today, many people live on what's left of the island. So Santorini it's very populated today. It's a beautiful island, and most of them live along that rim of where the ancient volcano is. So this is an example of some of the homes you'd see in Santorini today. Very beautiful, actually. Quite a nice place to
I
live.
think I've seen that in the commercial ones.
You may have. Now, there's the rim of the volcano today. You can see kind of where it's been just destroyed apart and what's left over from that. And of course, it's again a very beautiful island. Now, there are remnants of this ancient society there. So these are the remains of the destroyed civilization. We have carvings. What is this? Can you make out what that carving is? Zach?
A fish.
Yeah, it's possibly could be a whale, but it's hard to say exactly what it is. We have the excavations have been done from some of the housing that's been there. There's been ancient sort of grounds that are still left behind. Oops. No, let's try
So
to get that
Atlantis
picture.
is real?
And of course, there is some artwork left. Yes, it was. Now, it didn't sink to the bottom of the ocean, however. It was a lot different than that. paintings, all types of things have been found there. Now, today, a baby volcano, I put the word in quotations because it's not actually a baby volcano, it's just a smaller volcano, is growing in the middle of the harbor created by the first explosion. It could erupt any day, just like its first one did. I put mother, but again, they're not living, so. Now, that's all for our little talk about volcanoes. The next time we meet, we're going to talk more about what actually we know about volcanoes, what types of volcanoes there are. Any questions about today, though, Juliana?
I didn't get the last one.
Oh, what is it?
What legend was started because of the volcano?
Oh, we just said that. What's that? And the legend of Atlantis was started because of the volcano. That's the exact one. So we have three thinkers who thought about volcanoes. The ancient Greeks, what did they believe? What did the ancient Greeks believe caused earthquakes to happen? Connor?
Is it God?
Not a god. The ancient Greeks believed something else. Yes.
Winds?
Winds, great winds. What did the Romans believe? Specifically Ovid. Matteo?
When the Earth came too close to the sun.
Earth came too close to the sun. And lastly, what did Rene Descartes believe in the Middle Ages? Yep.
There's a core.
A glowing hot core. Yeah, we haven't actually talked about what really causes these things, but we're going to in the next few classes.
Like a mountain?
Today was just simply to talk about what people believed about them in the past. Now, if you flip your sheet to the back, there is a second part, and it is quite straightforward. You're going to be writing your own volcano myth. So you're going to make up your own reason why a volcano happens, or earthquakes, or both. You don't have to do both, but you can pick one. And it doesn't have to be super long. As you can see there's probably about one paragraph of writing. If you want to write a bit smaller and put more in, or if you want to attach a sheet, that's fine. And then you need to do a very quick illustration of what that event would have looked like. So again, thinking about what could have caused it. Now, of course, they can be a bit silly because our ancient ancestors did believe in a whole variety of gods, some specifically for volcanoes like the Hawaiians. So you can make up anything you want. The writing part is worth 8 marks, so I would suggest having at least 8 facts about your little story, and the illustration is worth 2 marks, so making sure that it's not just stick people and sketch in rough sketches with a pencil, and it looks somewhat okay. Otherwise, that is it for today, and we'll stop there.